Hey everyone, I'm back, and what a time to return. Mohammed Hijab has decided to make 2025 his year of public humiliation. The latest thing that's happened to him is that he's lost a court case against the Spectator and against Douglas Murray for an article they wrote about him. Now, he made this frivolous defamation case, and he's posted on X just recently that he's received court costs of £670,000. And I just think it's brilliant. Now we're going to look through some of the court documents, some of the juicy bits, because there's so much funny stuff in there, and it just really shows exactly why he's been hit with this massive bill. Because his conduct and his constant lying during the case has landed him this problem. He seems to think that he can just act like he's at Speaker's Corner or something and get away with it in front of a High Court judge. And he's learned the hard way now that that's not going to happen. So we'll have a look at that in a minute. But I just wanted to point out he's in big trouble now, and I can see he's only got four options at this point. He can either declare bankruptcy, which I can't imagine him doing, because then I think it would interfere with running his businesses, even if it is YouTube. Number two, he could flee to Egypt. I think he does have dual nationality. That would be my personal favorite. Number three, he can try and go fund his way out of this by just doing endless e-begging GoFundMe to try and get all the money from his foolish followers. Or number four, and I only look at this option now because I was looking at his X account. He seems to be trying to set up MMA fights now for money. And so maybe he's going to push himself into a new career of fighting with people to try and pay off this debt. So I mean, either way, his options look grim, but quite frankly, good. If you think this video is going to be full of Schadenfreude, we are wrong, because there's nothing shameful about the joy we get from watching this clown of the Dawa circuit get his just desserts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the end, which is the submission section and the judge's kind of response to all the evidence that's come in, because I think the judgment is just brilliant. And then we'll go through a couple of other aspects of the court documents. If we look at paragraph 91, this is effectively the agreed upon statement and meaning from the Spectator article, the accusations against Mohammed Hijab. So I think it's worth reading out. The claimant is a street agitator who has whipped up a mob on London streets, addressed an anti-Israel protest in inflammatory terms, and exacerbated frayed tensions between Muslim and Hindu communities in Leicester by whipping up his Muslim followers, including by ridiculing Hindus for their belief in reincarnation and describing Hindus as pathetic, weak, and cowardly in comparison to whom he would rather be an animal. At the end of paragraph 95, it says, it is, however, necessary for the claimant to prove that the article has in fact caused serious reputational harm, or that is likely to do so in the future. Paragraph 96, the claimant has not discharged that burden. So basically, Mohammed Hijab has failed to make his case. So we look at halfway down paragraph 97, it says, the material that is published by the claimant, which is Hijab, including in particular the video of his speech in Leicester, is at least as reputationally damaging to him as the article. So the judge is saying the very evidence that is available, which you've put up on your own YouTube channel, has defamed you more than anything that the article actually said. The video shows him far more vividly than is conveyed by the words of the article, directly whipping up a large group of masked men and ridiculing a central tenet of Hinduism in the febrile context of ongoing disturbances between large groups of young men. Against that background, it cannot be inferred that the article caused or would be likely to cause additional serious reputational harm. So they're basically saying you can't claim reputational harm because you haven't got a reputation to harm, except for one which is much worse than the article. They're saying the article underplayed how fucking bad you are, how much of a street agitator and that you really are, that you whip up mobs deliberately, and your own videos on your YouTube channel prove it. So it's not really a surprise that the court has hit him hard in response to this, because what a fucking idiot. You go to court and then the actual evidence on your own YouTube channel condemns you. So paragraph 98. Second, this is not a case where it is necessary to work on the basis that it is inherently difficult to provide evidence of reputational damage. The claimant is very well known on social media and he has a huge number of followers. If the article did cause him reputational harm, it is likely that would be reflected in a significant reduction in the number of his followers and or a significant reduction in his income from his social media platforms. The claimant advanced such a case, but it was unsupported by reliable evidence and is a confected case. So therefore, Hijab has gone in there trying to claim, oh yeah, I've taken such a massive financial hit. Yet there's no evidence of that. And in fact, when we get into the details of it, there's evidence that he would obviously benefit because it's rage bait, because he's whipping up the very kind of people that may want to go out and get on the streets and have a fight. So it was a ridiculous claim. Paragraph 99. Third, no reliance can be placed on the claimant's evidence. Accordingly, to the extent that he gives evidence that his reputation has been damaged, unsupported by other credible material, that takes his case no further. So in other words, the judge is just saying you're a fucking liar. Okay, everything that you've put in front of the court is completely worthless as evidence, and I'm pretty sure he actually uses that phrase, worthless evidence, which is very harsh from a judge. And so therefore, you're just so unreliable that any claim you make that you've suffered harm, it can be dismissed based on the lack of strength of the evidence, and in fact the contradictory evidence that you've promoted. Fourth, there is some evidence that the claimant positively revelled in any form of publicity. Let's read that bit again. There is some evidence that the claimant, Mr. Hijab, positively revelled in any form of publicity. He said in evidence that up to a point, controversy increased the number of people who viewed his material and hence the value that could be realized from that content. So even at his own trial, he's basically admitting that him doing all this controversial stuff, going and trying to whip up a mob, actually makes his money. He says this in a trial where he's trying to claim that he suffered financially because of the article that was written. And yet the very things he was doing that the article describes, he admits in the fucking courtroom that it's made him money. I mean, is this guy just king of the idiots or what? I have no idea. When he was described as an instigator in chief, he had t-shirts printed emblazoned with instigator in chief, which he sold via an Amazon outlet. So he's directly financially benefiting. And if you look at his X account, he's still got that as the banner picture of him in one of those t-shirts with instigator in chief on it. So he's still benefiting years later. He's promoting it proudly that this is what he is. Fifth, there is no other credible evidence of damage to the claimant's reputation occasioned by the article. So again, it's all of his claims just about his reputation, just absolute nonsense. Sixth, it is now almost 3 years since the article was published. In the absence of any credible evidence that the claimant has sustained serious reputational harm in that period, it's not likely that the article will in the future cause harm. Yeah, so obviously it's been 3 years since the article was written back in 2022, and Mohammed Hijab is still going strong. Seventh, the claimant relies on what he says is a death threat. This is contained in an Instagram message, which is undated. Nothing in the Instagram message references the article. It may have been written in response to the claimant's video of his speech or something else. There is no evidence that the article caused a death threat to be made. So this is another tactic that Mohammed Hijab constantly uses, right? When all this stuff came out about his hotel wife and everything, or the allegations about it, you know, that he was having sex with that woman on the side and just using her in hotels. What did he do? He came out of a video implying that Elon Musk was trying to kill him, that he was getting death threats either from Elon Musk or someone close to him. So he just uses these lies constantly as a distraction or as, you know, to try and bolster his claims or whatever. And the judge has just seen right through it. So he's obviously just shown up in court with some bullshit message, completely, you know, undated, no connection to the thing, and said, to the article, and just said, oh, look, you see, I'm getting death threats now, thanks to Douglas Murray. Just absolute rubbish, and the court has just thrown it out. Paragraph 104, so it follows that the claim in defamation must be dismissed. Now, it is accordingly not necessary to address the truth defense, but I do briefly for completeness. So we skip to paragraph 107. The description of the claimant as a street agitator who was whipped up a mob on London streets and as someone who addressed an anti-Israel protest in inflammatory terms is an accurate description of what the claimant is seen to do at the rally for Israel. So this is the judge just saying straight on, these things are ostensibly true, what was said about you in the article. There's no way you're getting out of this. So what I would suggest is that now anybody, whoever addresses Mohammed Hijab in a video, if they see him in the street court, you know, down at Speaker's Corner in the street, you should address him as the court confirmed liar and street agitator, because that is what a high court judge has basically labelled him. And I think that's brilliant. We now have the British legal system confirms that this is who Mohammed Hijab is. And he can't make any claims against anyone else, not unless he wants to have another massive debt. So this is now his officially court-sanctioned title, as far as I'm concerned. It follows that even if the claimant had succeeded in showing that he'd suffered serious reputational harm as a result of the article, the claim would fall to be dismissed because the defendants have established that the defamatory imputation covered by the article is substantially true. So again, even if he had somehow suffered some kind of reputational harm, which he was not able to demonstrate, the exact opposite is the case. The point is that reputational harm be justified because what the article says is true. So court has determined you're a liar, you're an evidence fabricator, and you basically like whipping up mobs on the streets of England. And I just think it's brilliant. So this is how he should be referred from now on. So the claimant seeks special damages for losses resulting from the decisions of 3 organisations to disassociate themselves from him because of the article. So one is the One Umar, Chief Executive Officer is Rizwan Rahman. Nature's Blend, whose director is Yusuf Wasway. Now, Nature's Blend, you will know, is if you watch Ali Darwa videos, he is constantly advertising for them to sell their, black seed oil or whatever the fuck it is. And Salam. And again, Salam is another one that Ali Darwa and all these other Darwa guys do advertising for. So these organizations, they're all mates of each other. And while I'm not saying anything specific about these organizations themselves, there has been so many examples in the past where the Charity Commission here in the UK has had to do investigations of all these Islamist adjacent or just directly Islamist so-called charities, because they're little scams, basically. A lot of them, as I say, I'm not directly saying this is true of these, but a lot of these organizations, they're just little scams to funnel around money and do all sorts of shady shit. And they have been exposed on a number of occasions. I think a couple of them were shut down as well previously, but they just spring up again. So like the idea that these 3 organizations were going to suddenly like cut Mohammed Hijab loose and not give him any money when they're all mates of each other, they're all advertising each other products, and they're all, in my opinion, they're questionable as so-called charities. It's laughable, his claim. He said that he lost a deal worth $3,500 a month to be brand ambassador for One Umar, an advertising contract with Nature's Blend worth $1,500 a month and 25% commission on the sales, and an engagement in a Ramadan fundraising campaign with Salam worth £30,000. He relies on emails from each organisation sent between 17th and the 24th of November 2022 to establish that apparently he's lost all this money. Now, the funny thing is, this does show, right? If this was true, or let's say even if it's, it's established that this is not true in terms of these cases in the court documents, but let's say this is the kind of money that Hijab makes. I mean, you're talking $5,000 a month in total there. So what's that? That's 60 grand for the year, plus a one-off £30,000 for a fundraising campaign. So that's 90 grand over the course of a year, just for working with all these shady kind of organisations that spring up all the time in the UK. So this guy makes a fair amount of cash grifting and selling shit and being the face of all these dodgy charities. So it's not like he's short of a few dollars. So it's not surprising you see him flying all around the world and taking holidays every few weeks, broadcasting from the Middle East or from Norway or from wherever else he's going to try and pick a fight with someone. So he's got a fair amount of money. So it shows these guys, the humble, servants of Allah. Yeah, and they accuse anyone else who makes like a video criticizing them of being in it for the money. Look at the kind of cash he's raking in. I mean, I don't know about you, but 90 grand a year, that's a very reasonable salary. And this is just from 3 possible sponsorships. So now the fact is that it was established that this is absolute crap, what he's saying. But as I say, if it reflects the kind of money he's used to, that shows how lucrative it is to be one of these Darwa guys. So, paragraph 61, we get to the reality of these claims about the money. So, the messages which the claimant relied on to show the withdrawal of funding arrangements have the appearance of being contrived for the purpose of these proceedings. In 2 instances, they are addressed as Dear Mr. Hijab, when the correspondence were well known to the claimant and addressed him in other contemporaneous contexts in altogether more natural and less formal terms. So yeah, the judge is recognizing that any other time you corresponded, they're probably calling you Aki, they're probably calling you brother, they're probably calling you Mo, whatever, because you're all mates, you all know each other, and that's clear from what the judge has seen of the evidence. They each attribute their decision to dissociate from him to the article. They each provided the material that would be necessary to support a claim for financial losses occasioned by publication of the article. They arrived from the three separate organisations at roughly the same time, which was several weeks after the article, but very shortly before a letter of claim was sent. The claimant recognised the implausibility that this was all a coincidence. So yeah, basically, it's several weeks after the article came out. Nothing has been sent, but then suddenly within a week, just before he wants to make his defamation court claim, they all suddenly write a letter saying, "Oh yeah, we cancelled all our financial arrangements with him." So they've just done it just before he submits a claim in the High Court of defamation against Douglas Murray. So yeah, it's obvious that this was fucking coordinated. I mean, they're so stupid. He couldn't have even waited a while, or maybe just asked them immediately to send it, and then thought, right, I'll wait a month before I start my claim. He's that thick. But he does it and just makes it just look obvious that this is all contrived. And the judge just, but again, he thinks a high court judge is going to be stupid and not realize this. His explanation was that the decision makers for the three organisations knew one another and were likely to have consulted with each other, and that is why the decisions were made at about the same time. Yeah, which is not a particularly convincing argument. The supporting evidence was unsatisfactory. That's a big shock. There were no disclosure of contracts, receipts, accounts, or payments. Statements from Mr. Wasway, Mr. Raymond, and Mr. Hussein were served. In cross-examination, it says Mr. Wasway accepted that he had been convicted on his plea of offences of dishonesty, causing staged road traffic accidents to secure compensation on a false basis, albeit he maintains his innocence. He was sentenced to 27 weeks imprisonment. So one of Hijab's witnesses is a known liar who's been convicted of staging road traffic accidents and received a prison sentence for it. So this is the witness that the judge is supposed to believe is honestly talking about how he's withdrawn his financial offer to Mohammed Hijab. Again, this is how low character, the entire swamp that represents the Dawa community and all their associates, it is just full of the lowest of the low, con man, scamists, fundamentalists, jihadists, fucking, people who have been in prison for lying. I mean, this is who he thought would convince a judge. An ex-colleague from Nature's Blends was also convicted. So it's another one from the same organisation. Mr. Wasway, who did not apparently appreciate the significance of the point, made it clear that Nature's Blend decided to disassociate from the claimant of its own accord without consulting any other organisation. He thereby flatly contradicted the claimant's explanation for what the claimant recognised was otherwise an implausible coincidence. So yeah, in other words, Hijab's saying, oh yeah, they all knew each other and must have consulted before, and that's why they all wrote their letters at their emails at the same time to say yes, they were breaking off their contracts with me. And then the very witness who he calls then says, no, we did it off our own accord. It was nothing to do with the other organisations. So not only is his witness a convicted felon and liar, he then just contradicts what Hijab is saying. So therefore make it look even more obvious that this whole thing has been contrived. Dear, oh dear. I swear to God, a clown could have done a better job at this fucking court case. I also acceded to an application from the claimant for Mr. Raymond to give evidence by video link from outside the jurisdiction. Mr. Raymond was served with a witness summons, and it was intimated that he would attend court in person and would be the first witness to be called. In the event, in apparent breach of the witness summons, he did not attend the court. So again, one of the three witnesses just refused to attend. Oh dear. It was said that this was due to a medical emergency. No evidence was provided to support that assertion. Yeah, it's a big fucking shock. It was also said that he'd been in the jurisdiction for the first day of the trial but was now outside the jurisdiction in Egypt. Fleeing to Egypt. I mean, maybe that's something that Mohammed Hijab can do. A hearsay notice was served in respect of Mr. Rahman's evidence. I do not consider any sufficient explanation has been given for his failure to attend court in response to the witness summons. Further, it is difficult to credit Mr. Rahman's evidence in the article cause one Umar to disassociate from the claimant. There are messages between him and the claimant well after publication of the article in which they are obviously on good terms, and Mr. Raymond praises the claimant and discusses a contract. So even so even after the court the defamation case has been submitted, this guy who says he's broken off contact because he's so worried about the reputational harm is still being mates, and they're all talking, and he's discussing a different contract that he's going to have with him. So again, it's just fucking, they're just blatantly lying in the court, and the judge is calling them out on it. Further, there is evidence that the claimant did assist One Umar with fundraising promotional videos in March to June 2024 and January to June 2025. So they've actually got they've got evidence that shows that he's been financially benefiting from a relationship with the very organization that said, no, we cut ties because of this terrible article that was written by the Spectator. You get, for the last couple of years, they've been working together doing promotional videos, fundraising videos together. So honestly, what am I even reading here? I mean, this is so embarrassing that he would bring this court. Honestly, the £670,000 court cost was not enough. He should have had the 4 million, because this is just fucking embarrassing. For these reasons, I do not place any weight on his evidence. It is not necessary to address numerous further points raised by the first defendant as to Mr. Raymond's credit as a witness. Yeah, no shit. Jesus. Oh, Lord. Right, this is the last bit of this. As to Salam, the third organisation, no evidence was called for Mr. Amir Ahmed, who wrote the email on the 24th of November 2022, or Brother Amir and the other guys in the Shura who apparently made the underlying decision. Nor was evidence given by Mr. Dawa, who was a close associate of the claimant and who appears to have been involved with Salam throughout. So they're talking about Ali Dawa here, and who was identified as a witness in quantum losses in the claimant's directions questionnaire. Instead, so I think Ali Dawa was actually supposed to show up and give evidence. He doesn't seem to either. Instead, evidence was given by Zeshan Hussein, who was Salam's operations manager. He started working for Salam in January 2025. Therefore, he was not there in post at the time of the decision to disassociate from the claimant and is not able to give direct evidence about that. Although he purported to give evidence about it, he did not provide any underlying documents to support what he said and did not identify the sources of information. So yeah, this is the details. None of these people have been able to provide any evidence, and any evidence that they have put in has directly contradicted and showed Mohammed Hijab to be a liar. Now, I just want to do one more little bit here, which is on the conduct of Mohammed Hijab in the court, because I think it's a brilliant way just to close this off. This is paragraph 43. As a witness, he was combative and constantly argumentative. He sought at every turn to debate with counsel, responding to questions with rhetorical questions of his own, arguing his case rather than giving straightforward responses, and denigrating the character of the second defendant to whom he bears palpable personal animosity. So again, he thinks he's actually at Speaker's corner. He's acting like he's surrounded by his Dawa buddies and he's going to own someone in an argument and put this on YouTube. He doesn't seem to realize he's in a court case and there could be serious consequences if he doesn't act properly. I'm satisfied that he lied on significant issues, with the consequence that his evidence overall is worthless. I mean, this is the judge saying it. This is brilliant. Specifically, I'm satisfied that he lied in respect of the event at Golders Green, the counter-protest at the Rally for Israel, the seminar on Hinduism at the Sapiens Institute, which was some claim where he was trying to say he was all respectful of Hinduism and stuff like that, and they just thought that was a lie too. His repudiation of vigilantism, his evidence as to the involvement of the Hindutva, and his evidence about his choice of language in his speech, and his evidence in support of claim for financial losses, and he addresses them in turn. So basically, he lied about every single thing in this court case, and that is the judgment of, what is his name? Because this, who is the High Court judge here? It is Mr. Justice Johnson. So Judge Johnson has determined that, yeah, Mohammed Hijab is a court condemned and confirmed liar, and he's got a 670 grand debt for his trouble. So Mr. Johnson, the judge of this case, should be given a knighthood right here for this, because we're all going to dine out on this for a very long time. And it would be great to see all those ill-gotten gains of him for his decade of Dharma grifting, for him to now have to pay it all back. It's brilliant. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. As I say, go vote in the poll what you think Mohammed Hijab's next move is going to be. It's in my community posts. It's nice to be back. I'm sorry I was away for so long, everyone, but I will be here on a more regular basis. So there will be another video later this week. I will see you all in the next one.